Well, hello, everyone, and good morning. I am here in California. It's 9 a.m. And Bonnie, you are in North Carolina, right?
It is noon.
It's noon, so lunchtime for you. Let's just talk a little bit about one of the things that comes up a lot, which is that the service design market saturated. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yes. Yeah, I would love to because I don't believe it's true. I know that it's not true. And so to try to kind of reframe this, what I would like to do is ask how many people watching know of a photographer who's making a full-time living out of being a photographer. Probably the vast majority of us know. And it still goes on for multiple other creative industries like logo designers or graphic designers. I know several who are making full-time livings. And, you start talking about surface pattern design on the street and no one has any idea what you're talking about. And I think the thing that really is the eye opener is that surface designers create artwork for products, all sorts of products. And it's impossible to be saturated because products, companies, and brands all over the world are looking for artwork for their products. We're talking about diapers and packaging and rugs. Of course, we're talking about wallpaper and wrapping paper and fabric, but so much more than that too. Ribbon and stationery and all of the things. And so I'm not really sure why this is one of the most common concerns. I think it could be, I shared a little bit yesterday on live that I think that we live on informational planets. I think that our worlds, our online worlds, and because of algorithms and all that stuff, will show us things that they are similar to what we've looked at. And so we start following some of the surface pattern designers, and all of a sudden everything we look at is this, and it feels saturated. But when you kind of step just off of that informational planet, there are opportunities literally everywhere. So, I would just challenge that mindset a little bit.
For sure. And so there are a couple comments that have come through that are fabulous. One is from Cynthia, who you'll probably recognize because she took the course last year. And she said, not only is it so worth it, but it's so much better than doing graphic design because you get to design what you want to put out there. Whitney also said, yes, the first question someone asked me when I said I was becoming a surface pattern designer was if I had an art degree. And that's what they asked, but you don't need one.
And, I love that question because I say, no, not I
know. Exactly. So, Bonnie, I'm going to ask you a question and then I'm going to run upstairs to get my earbuds because people are saying that there's a little bit of an echo and I'm sure it's because I forgot to put my earbuds in.
What I've done has worked for me, and I think Anne does too, is design truly what I want to see come alive in the world. So I will design really from my heart and my own vision and what is it that I want to create and why do I want to create it? And all of a sudden it gives so much freedom. So I work from that perspective and then I see who's interested in it. And it helps align me with other brands and companies that have similar messaging. So, my messaging is oftentimes centered around nature and kind of getting back to the simple joys in life and gardening and things like that. And so I'm not designing to someone else's brief. I'm designing truly the messaging and the story that I want to see come alive in the world. And it makes the work so much more meaningful, makes it feel like it's a part of me. It makes me feel like it kind of goes to like legacy, like I'm leaving a legacy. I'm leaving a mark on the world. And it makes it more meaningful. And so I would offer that as a possible perspective.
I love it too, Bonnie. And, one of the things that kind of always gives me goosebumps when we kind of talk about this is that, I'm 64 and I think you're 35 or 34. I think you're like 30 years under than me. And I've so considered you ever since I met you as like this amazing kind of mentor. And as I mentioned at the very outset, it's kind of this shining light that's helping me navigate this next phase in my life and finding something that's so rewarding. And, the people in my community who look more like me, or in my age cohort, they sometimes we can feel like our ship has sailed or our life is over, or we are busy with our grandkids now, or we are busy with our parents if we're lucky enough that our parents are still with us. And
Right.
And so surface design is such an incredible way for us to actually create a legacy for generations to come in terms of the artwork that we create.
Yeah. So I'll talk about my mom. She's 67. And, we've been caretakers for, her parents up until last year. And I know very much, intimately close with the duty. I mean, it's a real honor. It's also very time consuming, but she came through the immersion course, and let me back up because that sounded funny. I think it's such an honor to take care of our parents. And it was a real honor for me to be able to be really close with that. So she came through the immersion course, and she's a quilter. She's a sewer. She's not an artist. She's not a designer. And she learned how to create her own sewing patterns. So she's written patterns forever, never been able to do the illustrations for them. And this led her into about the last 7 years. So she retired last year in the fall. So recently retired. She's full-time Mimi now. But this, for about the last 7 years of her career, brought her to selling her brick and mortar shop, doing a subscription box that became so successful that she could not cut more fabric. She was cutting like 5,000 yards of fabric by herself a month. To a digital membership where she was designing quilt patterns and sending them out and doing a tutorial on how to sew. And I think what an unusual use of this program that has been, I love those. I love it when people do like what we expect them to do, but I love it when people take what they learned and they turn it into this whole thing that's, a little bit different, and it's so fun to watch.
It is so fun to watch, and there's so many incredible opportunities to discover within yourself how you want to utilize these new skills. And, one of the things that my mom always told me was anything that you put into your brain, nobody can take it away from you, right? And so when you learn all of these additional skills and then you start to figure out what you want to do with them, no one can take that away from you. You can always figure out, might take you a while to figure out how you want to use it, but you'll always feel the sense of empowerment that you have this new skill set. And you don't have to go back to a 4-year college or to a PhD or spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in the educational system to acquire these skills, which is another thing about the advent of the internet, which allows us to learn these things so much more easily.
What I think also really happens is somewhere in the process of learning this program, because this is a program that professionals use, and it's not easy. It's hard to learn, but it's absolutely possible. And I think that when you do it, it builds a confidence in yourself. It's what I did. It's what it did for my mom, but also for me, but in a little bit of a different way. For my mom, it made her just really know that she can still learn new things, and she can pivot, and she can do something new. And it was like this blossoming of confidence where she was really feeling like she was kind of set on this path that she couldn't get out of. For me, it's just such a confidence builder to know that when I'm working with someone and they need a specific file type or whatever, I say, no problem, I'll send it right over. Just knowing something so well builds your confidence in such an incredible way. It's magic.
It is magic. It is totally, totally magic. And Sweetie, who's here today, who's so awesome, she's a grandmother and she's taking care of her grandkids. And so she doesn't have a lot of time. And so she's finding the nooks and crannies when she can actually apply herself. And it's just wonderful to see the fact that that, our ship has not sailed. We have so much to offer the world still, and we have so much talent to be able to learn new things, and it helps us stay young and involved and engaged. And your community is full of such incredible diversity and encouragement and support and joy. Talk a little bit about that and how important community is for all of us today, because just the last 2 years have been rough.
Yeah, don't let me forget to come back to that. But one thing you said made me think. I have such a heart for let's say anybody in our program. We have a lot of people who come through the program that are in their 60s, 50s, 70s, even 80s. And so many of these people have shared with me that somewhere along their life, they were told that they weren't creative, or that you couldn't do this, like you couldn't be successful as an artist. Sometimes it's a parent, sometimes it's a teacher. You need to get a real job. And I think what an incredible time we live in now, that this specific career has no bias to where you live, how old you are, who you are. If you are willing to kind of show up and do the work, then opportunity is there. And I think that's really incredible. Community is, we hear that word a lot, but I think that it becomes something entirely different when it's community that understands something that most people do not. And so for me, in my, real life, nobody does what I do. Nobody understands the language. They don't know. I mean, they know what surface pattern design is because I've told them, but typically no one understands. They're supportive. They're like, that's cool, but they don't know how to actually support. I can't brainstorm with them on a portfolio or reaching out or a licensing contract. And so we have all of this knowledge that's very, very specific. And all of a sudden you get into a program like this, and there are not only my expert team, so there are 26 experts that have really high level knowledge, but then there are also, over 1,000 other students who have knowledge. And we built the community on values of, community over competition, building each other up, supporting, encouraging, sharing what we know. And so everyone just comes together and really collaborates to help each other get unstuck. Someone has a contract that has been offered to them, and there's like a line in there about territory that they don't understand. They can come to us in the community and share it with us, and we can explain it. Or like, hey, I got reached by this company, but I've never heard of them before. Have any of you heard of them or worked with them before? Yes, no, yes, no. I mean, it's really, really, I think, transformative.
Yeah, for sure. And that is incredibly, incredibly important, and more so all the time. And so my sweet friend, Pauline Riley, who's my community manager, she was told by an art teacher that she didn't have any talent. Yeah, it's like in school. And it's like, it's tragic. And because of course we all have talent. We don't all draw like Picasso, but art is not only high art, right? Art is not only art, museum art. Art is everywhere, and we can all create art. So that segues beautifully into my next question, which is like, but what if I don't think I can draw like at all, like stick figure drawing?
So yeah, I love that. I can't draw really. Now I have learned over the years how to draw a little bit better, but oftentimes I'm doodling and rough sketching, and I've learned to kind of take an idea of a rough sketch and manipulate it digitally to get it to what I want to look like. But so we start with doodles. We start with just making marks. I was just talking to an alumni, Rebecca Bobko, yesterday, who said one of the practices in the course is to literally make scribbles, just start making marks on a page to get warmed up. And she's turned those scribbles into a pattern that's been licensed on a bunch of different products. And so it's really cool to see just how that can turn into a style in and of itself. But if you truly don't like to put pen or pencil to paper, I also teach how to work on photographs. So I always say when we're working on photographs, they have to be our own. So I teach you how to kind of get out from behind the computer and go take photographs of the things that inspire you. And then I'll show you how you can use those to trace over. This print is of a flower in my garden that I popped into. Well, I used the iPad, but you could also use like tracing paper. And I just used it as a guideline to rough sketch over it. And I turned it into something like this. The other thing I teach, though, is how to use found items and scan them in and use them. So, for instance, the leaves in the background of this print, you see that?
Yeah.
Are leaves from my yard that I scanned in on the scanner and I vectorized them. So I didn't draw those at all. This print is extra special. I can hold it up, right side up. So this print is from a collection that I did called Her in History. And this is a play on words for her and his story. And I did this collection the year after I lost my grandparents. And the whole collection is really reminiscent of like just the collective love that we have for grandparents. And this particular print I scanned out of two, my grandmother and my grandfather's journals. And so this one is January 16th, 1916. I went to church this morning and there was snow about 1 inch on the ground and it was so very pretty. So there's recipes on here and notes from their journals, and talk about just meaningful work. You know, you can take something like that. So I didn't draw any of that. Was able to use things that I already had to create print.
The other thing that you talked about yesterday that if people missed, I wanted to touch upon was this concept of, all of your work does not need to have a story behind it, but frequently your inspiration does come from a personal story and or a personal something that's happening in your life at the time at the moment. And
Yeah.
and so you talked about the children's dictionary and the fact that there's a children's dictionary. And so tell us retell that story for us in case anybody missed it.
Yeah. So I love weaving in story to my work. I think it's something that makes our work feel connected, both to us and to the person who's looking at it. It gives us reason, purpose. It gives us inspiration. And so, for instance, my last collection was called The Wild Forgotten. And I was inspired to do this collection after I learned that, so my son was 7 at the time. He's 8 now. And there is a children's dictionary created for 7-year-olds that they had to update. So a children's dictionary can only contain so many words, because it's like a shortened version. And so they updated it because they had to start including new language that children were using that they had never used before. And thus they also had to take out some other words. And so the words that they had to put in were things like, hold on, I can't think and type at the same time. I got to pull up my example. Words that they had to put in were things like bandwidth, Wi-Fi, chat room, texting. Get where I'm going.
Yeah, all of these technology related words. Yeah.
So some of the words that they took out were acorn, almond, apricot, beaver, blackberry, bloom, bluebell, buttercup, cauliflower, clover, dandelion, doe, fern, fungus, lark, magpie, minnow, nectar, otter, parsnip and poppy, raven, thrush, walnut, willow, and rib.
So all outdoor things, right?
Yeah, they were
sure.
all nature, and there were also several like religious words too. So minister, altar, chapel, pulpit, psalm, saint, sin. That, a lot. It was Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting.
But, I think the thing is, most people want to be mad at the dictionary, and it's not their fault. They had to be representative of the words that our children are using. And so it's really falls on us. Like, we're the ones who kind of aren't teaching those words or using them like we used to. And so I did this whole collection on the hope of reigniting the use of these words in our childhood. And so there are some typography prints. Everything in the collection is named one of the words that were removed. And then everything, all of the illustrations were created out of something that had been removed as well. I have the whole collection in the next room over, but I don't have anything to grab right now.
That's all right. You did some beautiful posts on social media with some of them that are absolutely gorgeous, and so people can go check you out on social at Bonnie Christine, and go scroll back down through her beautiful feed, and you'll see some of them. They're amazing, really amazing. And so that kind of leads me to talk a little bit about sort of responsibility and the responsibility that we have to move forward in the way that is going to bring us joy and is going to be actually right for us. And you talked a lot about how when you first got started, you were having a hard time getting started. And so talk just a little bit more about that, because sometimes people will come into, this will sound really fascinating. They'll want to jump in, and then it's kind of like there's work involved, right? Not anything we're doing in life requires work. So just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I was crushed and stalled under the pressure of overwhelm. I wanted to do this. It was 2010, and I had no idea how to do it. I had no one to turn to. I didn't know how to get started. And that effort of getting started was so hard that I just didn't. And I let about 6 months go by. And I remember the morning I woke up in the bed and I was thinking about this, and I got mad. I mean, I got mad that I hadn't done nothing in order to kind of just even nudge towards this, even though I had really let it settle into my bones that I wanted it. And so that day I just thought, you know what? Just start doing one thing every day that nudges me closer. And what it did for me was kind of take my vision from a long gaze out to right in front of me. And I knew what I could do that day to get started. And that day I Googled how to become a fabric designer. And that led to one answer that prompted another question that led to another answer that prompted another question. And it just built on each other. But I was obsessed with this philosophy. And I didn't let a day go by that I didn't do one thing. I remember there was a night I got into bed and I'm like, I didn't do my one thing. I crawled back out of bed. And so even if it was 10 minutes, it counted. But, oftentimes it was a lot more than that. And at the end of 18 months, I signed my first contract as a fabric designer. It changed everything. I mean, I had never had something so impossible become possible in my life ever. It proved to me that really big, lofty goals were worth fighting for. And, I've done it over and over again, and I've seen people in my community do it over and over again.
Yeah. Baby steps, right? Baby steps. But the commitment to do those steps is really important.
It's the consistency. It's the consistency that we know this, right? We know that if we want to get stronger, we have to consistently work out. Or if we want to lose weight, we have to consistently eat good. But in the consistency, it's the hard part. It's hard to be consistent. And so getting to that habit creation standpoint of like, no, this is what I do because this is who I am. And you just do it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And so Jade says, I so resonate here. I'm going to bring it over. I so resonate with what you said, with what you just said. I too have been frozen in overwhelm and needed to wake up angry. And then when I heard you share the same, I jumped into daily action. So that's great.
Yeah, I think it's important to know, something that came up on the call yesterday was how fearful people are and how afraid people are. And I think that it's a really scary territory when we look at people who have found success and only assume that they don't have fear and they don't feel overwhelmed, because both of those things are not true. They do feel overwhelmed and they do feel fear and they do it anyway. And that's the difference. I mean, I don't know of anyone who's successful who, I mean, it's a muscle that you flex. So you get more comfortable. Let's say, like, if you speak on stages, the first time you're going to be incredibly nervous, but I don't know that you ever lose that nervousness completely. And so they have the fear. They just do it anyways. And that lessens the fear. It gives the fear less power.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I had a chance to meet you in person at your first in-person virtual event, which was in 2019, either 18 or 19, I can't remember now. I have the sweetest picture of the two of us on a swing at that beautiful place in Texas that where you hosted the event. And I didn't realize that was the first time that you had actually had a gathering of, 35 people or something who you were speaking in front of. And it's magical. But you talked a little bit about the fact you'd never done it before. But then as soon as you've done it, do you want to talk a little bit about the concentric circles?
Yeah. So I have to draw to do this. So, we all have this thing called comfort. This is our comfort zone. Is that in the camera? No.
There we go. You can see it now. Yep.
So this is what we call our comfort zone. You can see through my paper. And so it's cozy in here and it feels really good. And it feels like we know everything we need to know, but growth and comfort cannot coexist. And so something I learned a long time ago was that I needed to step just outside my comfort zone. So
yep, we can see it there. Just a teeny bit. You have a little arrow going outside of the circle, just a teeny bit, not too much.
Yeah. So we're not jumping over here.
Yeah.
We're not jumping way over here because that's like jumping off the deep end.
Right.
You just step right outside your comfort zone, baby steps, and then your comfort zone becomes bigger.
Yep.
And you do it again. You step just outside that comfort zone. So you hang out there until the new zone is your new comfort. And it happens. I mean, think about the first time you went live, Anne, compared to going live now. You probably don't even think about it.
Right. Even though I forgot my earphones. But it's like, okay, whatever. I'll just go get them. No big deal.
And the first time it would have flustered you. So your comfort zone gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is not fun news, right?
Right.
Because what it is telling you is that in order to grow, you have to be comfortable. You have to get comfortable consistently being a little uncomfortable. You'll have periods of comfort, but as soon as I feel very comfortable in every aspect of my life, I know it's time to step just outside again. And I do this in physical activity. So I am constantly stepping out to be uncomfortable and push myself physically. I do this in my artwork. If I've got my creativity completely, in my comfort zone, I'll try to learn a new skill and really stretch. Like, well, can I make fine art? I don't know. I did this just recently by throwing pottery. I've never thrown pottery and I'm not good at it at all, but it's so creative and it feels so fun to play. And then I do it with my learning. So if I ever feel like I kind of know everything I need to know, that's the first key for me to like stretch what I think is possible. So I read a ton, I listen to a ton of podcasts, really just grow. Like you said, once you have something in your brain, it's yours.
That's exactly right. And so I wanted to bring Cassandra's comment over because I thought you might also want to talk about this because patience is difficult too, she says, especially when I know I'm getting older. And so we need to talk about grace, giving ourselves grace.
Yeah. And, I can feel like eyes rolling, but let's really talk about this. Like, When there's a lack of patience, then the thing that there is pressure. And creativity under pressure is never as pure as it needs to be. Creativity under the pressure of, I have to make money like now, or I have to make something that's going to be licensed, or I have to create something good right now. All of the sudden, it's stifled and it's stiff and it doesn't have freedom about it because it's directly related to a have to. And so I think that it's really, really important to give yourself permission to take the time that you have to take in order to come out from the other side. So there's this video by Ira Glass about the gap. Have you seen it?
And yes, I love it. Oh, I'm so glad you mentioned it.
I mean, you can let everybody watch it later, but
yeah,
the concept is basically that when you decide that you want to do something new, there's a gap between your decision and the arriving of the knowledge and the taste that you need in order to be successful. And so many times people do this and they fall off right before they hit the other side because they lose patience. And so with patience, you can get to the other side. And this is where, people have made it who you look at and think, oh, they found success. They're doing what I want to do. Well, they cross the gap. And so it's an invitation for you to also come across the gap. You can absolutely do it, but it is going to require patience and you giving yourself permission to take the time. And that could be like 2 years of working at it. It could be less than that. It could be a year. It could be 6 months, depending on where you're at right now. But I think it's really, I took 2 years. So I took a year to learn Illustrator and I took a year to do nothing but create artwork because I needed to experiment with all the different ways that you could create work and how to gather inspiration and what this whole process looked like. I had to figure it out. And that just takes time. But I came through, I crossed the gap with a bit of a refinement. Now, that was 10 years ago. So I look back at it now and I'm like, oh, there's no refinement. But, at the time it felt like, I was really, really proud of what I had been able to do. And so I would just invite you to grow a deep love and appreciation for where you are right now, because perhaps if you had started 2 years ago, it wouldn't be the right timing for you. I mean, it really is a mindset shift. I want you to resonate with the idea that there's not a closing window of opportunity, but that there will be the right window of opportunity when you have arrived. And that takes some faith. It takes some trust. It takes some patience, and it takes some hard work.
For sure. For sure. So listen, I know how busy you are and I really appreciate you being here with me. Can you just talk a little bit about the workshop itself? So, because a lot of people have not signed up for it yet. So tell us just why they need to sign up. And the link is above the video.
Okay. So I teach this workshop in celebration of the upcoming immersion course. So immersion is coming up in the next week. And this workshop is my way of inviting people to really come dip their toes into the breathtaking world of surface design. And so it's not about selling this course. I always say, come to the workshop, whether you join us or not for the course. This workshop is chock full of so much value, so much information, so many actionable steps. And I want you to come. I just want you to come join us, join the fun, get a taste of the community, try to wrap your mind around the possibility and then go from there. So lesson number 1 went live on Monday, and you need to watch it because we're playing a game.
Right.
But because you've seen this, you you don't know the 3 goals. So go watch lesson number 1. All the lessons are under 30 minutes. And so they're, easy to watch. You can watch them while you're, doing whatever you want to do. A lot of the people watching are sketching while they watch. And then we had a live session yesterday. So we were on for a while. I shared 5 lies and why they're not true at the beginning. And then we did Q&A. Today, lesson number 2 has just been out for about almost 2 hours. And this is a big one. It is the stages to a flourishing designer. So when I was wanting to learn, I feel like I was crushed by overwhelm because I didn't know what was coming. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't have anybody to kind of reach their hand through the fog and say like this way. And so, based on my own journey, but also thousands of my students' journey, it's helped me kind of put together a roadmap that really almost everyone follows fairly closely. And it's 6 stages. And so there's a workbook that goes with today's lesson. You'll be able to identify where you're at on the path. And then you'll be able to see where you're going if you want to do this. And then we'll have a live session tomorrow. And then on Friday is lesson number 3. So lesson number 3 is about after you figure out where you're at on the path, you kind of figure out where you want to go. And then we break it down into a step-by-step 12-month progress guide. So you really walk away with very clear clarity and confidence in your next steps. We take the weekend off. I have a live session on Monday, the 14th. So Valentine's Day.
Yep.
And then on February 15th, lesson 4 goes live, which is everyone's favorite. It's about creating income as an artist and adding multiple streams of revenue to your business as a creative. That day, so Tuesday, I'm also doing a bonus Q&A session in the afternoon, specifically for course questions. So a lot of people have questions about the course this week. And while I answer as many as I can, I also don't want this week to be about the course. I want to truly just serve people and answer their questions that are related to the workshop. So I've tacked on a bonus Q&A for Tuesday where you will come and get all your course questions answered there too.
Awesome. That is absolutely perfect. I cannot wait. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk again real soon.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye, Bonnie.